guys? Out on the 10X today. I'm out riding the 010X simply because it's a little bit too wet for the Vsett. Not that the Vsett couldn't handle it, but I don't want to get any rust on that. But the 010X, I already rode this all last winter. Got a bit of rust on the axles, etc. So what's a little more at this point? Hopefully you can hear me through the mask and this new mic. But we'll start this out. We'll talk about every aspect about the Vsett 11 Plus and why I think it's a fantastic scooter. Start off, why did I originally even buy a Vsett 11 Plus? From my standpoint, it looked like a hybrid of the 011X and the Wolf Warrior, right? Or Wolf King even. At the time, the Wolf Warrior was the king of the wolf pack. So if you think of it as a hybrid of the 011X and the Wolf Warrior, it's really the best of both worlds from those two scooters. The reason it's a hybrid of those two scooters is basically because of the suspension layout, right? Most of these scooters have very similar controllers and batteries, and that isn't really any different. But what you're getting with the Vsett is the best front suspension, in my opinion, which is dual front hydraulic forks, with the best rear suspension, in my opinion, which is the dual hydraulic springs. Now, these are like coilovers, essentially, if you've ever heard of those for your car. But what the upgraded suspension does with the hydraulics, as everybody knows, is it gives a much more plush ride and less bouncing. And so, starting off, that's part of the reason the Vsett 11 Plus is my favorite scooter, is just from the suspension setup alone. It beats out a lot of other scooters for me. What if we rode the scooter down there? I'm going to start off with the overall durability, because after 2,000 miles, a lot of issues usually come up on scooters. But on this Vsett 11 Plus, like I'm saying, I've had next to no issues. I think the only real issue is going through consumables such as tires, brakes, and I think overall, the brakes may be one of my only complaint. Since it is a huge scooter, one of the heaviest on the market at 125 pounds, it takes a lot of braking. But they were also worried when they designed this scooter about the regenerative braking being too high and burning out components. So what they did, and I don't think they advertised this is just more of how the scooter works, is that they deactivated regen braking for the first 50% of the battery. And so what that means is that for the first half of the battery, you're going to be using fully disc brakes to stop. And so you're going to be burning through a lot more pads that way, and basically using up a lot more brakes. But the handlebar themselves have a nice pitch to it that makes the scooter easy to control. I like it better than a straight handlebar that a lot of scooters come with. The straight handlebar it doesn't have a right angle with my wrists to make it comfortable to ride, where my wrists are kind of bent at a funny angle. And so I do like the pitched handlebar, and I like all the button layout. So the buttons are on the left hand side, like I was saying. Those are well laid out to where your thumb can reach them all while you're riding. And I like that the horn's by itself on the bottom. You can't really confuse that with anything. And the turbo is beyond a doubt my favorite button on any scooter, just because you like to hit that bad boy and go. You guys, I think a lot of you are sleeping on this scooter with the Vsetts, how they have that turbo feature. Because not only does it increase the longevity of your controller by letting it cool down more often when you're riding, and forcing you to let it cool down, right? It's like a self-check mechanism where you can't just burn your controller out because you keep going so fast for too long. So I do love that feature. I think it's a great addition, just from a safety standpoint, that your controller should last. It won't die out on you in the middle of a ride or anything. And I think the boost, obviously the psychological aspect of being able to hit the boost and then just go 100% power, it's awesome, you know? So I embrace the boost. I usually use the boost about 4 or 5 times every ride. I think it's one of the greatest things about that scooter and about the Vsetts in general is that it has that boost. You just hit the sport button and you're in turbo then, you know? It's awesome. And nope, not plowed. The Vsett 11 Plus is about like a 6-cylinder versus the Vsett, the 010X is 4-cylinder. If you wanted to compare it to what it feels like in a car, that's sort of like the breakdown when you go from 52 volt to 60 volt to 72 volt, is it's going from your 4-cylinder to your 6-cylinder to your 8-cylinder, right? It's a little windy here. Mic check, mic check. Can you hear? Can you hear over the wind? Is there wind? Wonder what's picking up. Let me know what you guys think about the audio upgrade here. Hopefully it sounds a little better than it did before. Boo, they didn't do any of it. How boring is that? We came all the way out here and they didn't even do it. It's kind of disappointing they don't do that trail. It's a nice dry road. I'm gonna pull up here, change the battery, reset the camera, and continue this. Sun's starting to come down, guys. We're gonna make our way back. We're gonna make another video soon about this scooter, the one I'm on, the 010X, which currently has 3,300. Wow, it's about to go 3,333 on this dash. Plus, I had another dash that I did about 1,000 on that I had to replace after a wreck, and so that's 4,300 miles on this, so nearly double what I have on the Vsett. Both great scooters from a similar company. I think they're the same company. They just renamed it from Zero to Vsett, really. And I don't know if they're going to continue on with the Zero brand or if they're going to carry over to the Vsett brand, or just have both. I don't know what their plan is, but both great scooters. So let's talk some more about the right side of the handlebar on the Vsett. That would be the throttle. And the throttle and the screen is responsive and it works very well for me. I know some people are willing to upgrade to different systems and different throttles to try and get a little bit smoother acceleration or faster acceleration depending on what you do. But I think a lot of times that costs a lot of money, that most people it's not really worth it. And that the stock controllers, these square wave controllers, are sufficient, and so you can get decent control out of it, the throttle that they have for the Vsett. Like I mentioned earlier, the brakes, only downfall really on the brakes is that you have to change the pads a bit more often because you don't get that regen braking in the beginning of your battery. So other than that, the brakes do, I should say the brakes do a sufficient job. I've never not had braking or had to do jump off and it's some kind of emergency situation with that scooter. It's not really an issue. Here we are at Kinnick Stadium, home of the Iowa Hawkeyes. They had a great start to the season, and I don't know what happened. They just kind of fell apart at the end there. Let's talk about dual stem for a bit. So, if you don't know, dual stem is pretty much the greatest shit ever invented. Because even on this 010X, let's take a look at it. There's a bit of stem flex. You can see it, right? You can visibly see it. You can feel it. The stem moves when you move it, and it's not just the suspension. There is a little bit of flex in the stem. And so, when you factor that in, you've got to be a little bit more careful when you're riding the scooter, and don't put your full weight on it ever at any time, like on the stem. And so that's something with dual stem. Is this person gonna stop? Okay. With dual stem scooters like the Vsett, it's basically never even a thought of yours, because there's zero flex in the stem, like literally zero flex. And because there's zero flex in the stem, because there's two of them and it's heavily reinforced, it gives you that sense of security that you can ride a bit faster on that scooter than you can on something like this even. And it's not just because this is like gonna break, it's more because this is a little less stable in certain key parts like the stem. But once you get that better stem, dual stem, right, then that's not even an issue anymore. And then you can run more power without the thing starting to get all sketchy. Like, I like this 010X, don't get me wrong, I like it a lot, I've ridden it a lot, but it's a little more bouncy, it's a little bit more, it's not truly like that feeling like a car. And it's just, I think it's because the shocks aren't hydraulics and the tires are a little bit too small. The Vsett just fixes all that. So I think that's a big difference really with the Vsett between a 010X. If you maybe have a scooter like a 010X or a Mantis or something, and you're used to riding something like this, this is more of the bike feel, where it's like light and it doesn't have that car feel where it's heavy and has the full suspension. Like, it has a bike suspension, don't get me wrong, that's basically what this is, right? But the Vsett has like a motorcycle suspension essentially on the front, and so it's just so much smoother. You can't even put it into words, to be honest. Wonder if we can cut through here. Is it possible? You might have to walk. It's a little too sketch for me. This is a nice ride. What's next? Going down the stem. Let's talk about the headlight. Headlight is nice. I think the Vsett Olympus Super headlight's gonna be better, even with the high and low beam switch. So I'm excited to see that. But this headlight is sufficient. It's not too bright to blind people. You could ride on the bike path or on the street and just leave it on and not worry about that, because it aims pretty low. Decent headlight from that perspective. I think that's the biggest difference, is the road feel of the scooter. The 11-inch tires just roll better. They absorb less bumps. The suspension absorbs better, has less bounce. It has more speed, more top end, more power, more everything, more range. It's built with my favorite engineering, which is a cross between the 011X and the Wolf Warrior. So those two scooters basically combined into one. We're gonna just run into the oncoming traffic.
Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions, drop a comment. If you want to check out the Vsett 11 Plus, I'll drop the RevRides link in the description. Thanks a lot. Bye.